Okay, so everybody go ahead and open your reading textbooks to page 308. Everybody should be open at page 308. And Aaron, please tell us, oh, you're not ready. Mason, please tell us the genre of this story. Read loud and slow. Louder, a little louder.
A biography is a story about the life of a real person written by someone else.
Good. Remember, biography is about a real person written by someone else. It's facts. Lena, is that not comfortable? Okay. You want to try the other one?
Sure.
Okay, so biography is a real life story written about a person by someone else. Who remembers what it's called when the person it's about writes it about themselves? Kingston. An autobiography. It's an autobiography if the person it's about writes it about themselves. Okay, so as we read, we're going to continue to find author's purpose. We're going to do it the same way as we did yesterday, where we not only look for what it's saying, but we also look for what it's not saying. So remember yesterday we were like, well, it's not saying anything funny. It is giving us facts, and it's not trying to influence us. So be thinking about that, as well as what are the facts, or what are the funny things, or what are the opinions that are given. Hey, Mason, go ahead and read the title.
My brother Martin.
Yep, that's part of the title. It's just the subtitle.
A sister remembers growing up with the
Reverend.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
And the author?
by Christian King Davis. Illustrated by Chris
I don't even know, so just try your best.
Font.
I'd say maybe Saint-Piet, maybe? I don't know. Look at the author's name. Christine King Ferris. What do you notice about Christine King Ferris? Ethan? No, put the face shield down. The whole point is you have your face shield covering your mouth. You notice that there's king in it. And this story is called My Brother Martin, A Sister Remembers Growing Up with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So, who do you think this is? Who do you think the author is? Carla.
The author is Christine King Ferris.
Okay, well, but listen, Ethan said he noticed that she has the name King. And by looking at the title, My Brother Martin, A Sister Remembers Growing Up with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who do you think the author is? Not what her name is. We know what her name is. But who do you think she is? Mason. Martin Luther King's sister, probably. Zari, make sure that you tilt your camera down. All I can see is the top of your head, and I need to see you and a little bit of what you're working on. So you need to put your head up too, please. Martin Luther King's sister. So far, do you think this is going to be a real story or a made-up story? Smith.
A real story.
A real story. That kind of gives us a hint about the author's purpose, because stories written to entertain, are they usually real? Smith?
No.
No, but could they be?
Yes.
Yeah.
They could.
So we don't know yet. We have an idea that it might not be written to entertain, but we need to keep reading to make sure exactly what it is. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. And Victoria, read next, loud and slow.
We were born in the same room, my brother Martin and I. I was an early baby.
Shiffero.
Ship, ship, ship,
Shiffero.
shipperoo,
Shiff.
ship, oro, shipperoo, drawer. That stood in the corner of their upstairs bedroom. I got a crib a few days afterward. A year and a half later, Martin spent his first night in that hand-me-down crib and very in the others.
Okay. Helen, read next. Louder.
The house where we were born belonged to Mother Dear parents.
Not mother dear parent.
Mother Dear's parents. Our grandparents. The Reverend
Not Reverend. There's no L. You're exactly right, except you added an L sound.
Reverend and Miss
Not Miss.
Mr.
Not Mr. Mr. is MR. Miss is MS. MRS is
Mrs. A.D. Williams. We lived there with them and our Aunt Idea,
not idea. You added an extra E sound.
Idea,
Not idea. You're adding an extra E sound. You're exactly right, except you're adding that extra E sound. It's not idea. It's
Idea,
you're still adding an E. There's no E. Cover up the DA. How would you say that?
I,
Cover up the I. How would you say that?
Dia,
Why? There's no E. Why would you say dia? Does A ever say ia? Does D ever say D all by itself? What does D always say when it's all by itself?
D.
Not D.
Oh,
There's no such thing as long and short consonants. D only has one sound no matter what when it's by itself. Stop looking at it, and what sound does D make? Not D. What sound does D make? Aaron, what sound does D make? D. So Colleen, what sound does D make?
yeah,
D. So, how would you say D-A? D.
da,
But do you say D? Put those two sounds together. Who can help her out? How would you say D-A? Smith.
Duh.
Duh. So D, we don't say D, we say duh. So I, duh. How would you say that?
Ida.
Ida. We lived.
We lived there with them and our Aunt Ida, our grandmother's sister.
Smith, read next.
And not long after, my brother Martin, who we called ML because he and Daddy had the same name, our baby brother was born. His name was Alfred Daniel, but we called him AD after our grandfather.
Turn the page and read next. Colin again.
They called me Christian,
Not Christian, but Christine. It's a girl's name.
Christine, and like 3 peas in one pot. We grew together. Our days and room were filled with adventures, stories, and tinker toys. With dolls and Monopoly, and Chinese checkers.
Read next. Aaron, loud and slow. Make sure you're reading loud enough that the camera can hear you.
And although Daddy, who was an important minister, and Mother Dear, who was no
not read. Are they currently reading? It looks like read, but read in past and present tense are exactly the same. Are they currently reading? No. So how do we say it in the past tense? Okay, so start that sentence again. Or just start at and.
And read to us about all the wonderful places in the world.
Zadie, read next, loud and slow so the camera can hear you.
And of course, my brothers and I had each other. We three stuck together like the pages in a brand new book. And being normal young children, we were almost always up to something.
Oh, how is that always written? So how?
Slanted.
It's in italics. So that means the author wants you to emphasize it. So can you read that sentence again and make sure to emphasize the word always?
We three stuck together like the pages in a brand new book. And being normal young children, we were almost always up to something.
There you go. Exactly. So now we know it wasn't just sometimes. It was almost always. Zari, read next.
Our best prank involved a fur piece that belonged to our grandmother.
Make sure you're following along, everybody. Keep going, Zari.
It looked almost alive, with its tiny feet and little head and gleamy glass eyes.
A little slower, Zari. Okay. I'll put you back in. We'll call you later. Smith. Keep reading.
So, every once in a while, in the waning
There you go.
light of evening, we'd tie that fur piece to a stick and, hiding behind the hedge in front of our house, we would dangle it in front of unsuspecting passerby. Boy, you could hear the screams of fright all across the neighborhood.
Okay. Carla, read next.
When there was the time Mother Deer decided that her children should all learn to play the piano.
Carla, can you be a little bit louder?
Let me see if it's on the mic.
Okay, I'll call somebody else and I'll put you back, okay?
No, he's on the camera.
Okay, well here, I'll put you back, okay? So go ahead and mute yourself so that we can keep going before Coach Jay gets here.
Okay.
Kingston, continue reading where Carla left off.
I didn't mind too much.
A little louder.
I didn't mind too much, but ML and AD preferred being outside to being stuck inside with our piano teacher, Mr. Man, who would wrap your knuckles with a ruler just for playing the wrong notes.
A little louder. Good job, a little louder.
Well, one morning, ML and AD decided to loosen the legs on the piano bench so we wouldn't have to practice. We didn't tell Mr. Man, and when he sat down, crash, down he went.
Good. Zadie, can you open the door? You can open it all the way. So, thinking about what we've read so far, what do you think? Do you think ML, Christine, and AD enjoyed their childhood? And why? Do you think they had a good childhood? And then why do you think that? I'll pick a stick because a lot of you have answers. Well, keep your hand up. Mason.
I think they enjoyed their childhood. Because they used to play pranks on a lot of people.
So they probably thought those pranks were what?
Really,
Really funny. And if you enjoy your childhood, well, yeah, you're going to do funny stuff like that. But if you don't enjoy your childhood, you're just going to sit around and do nothing, right? Good. Okay, Mason, read next. Loud and slow.
but mostly we were good, obedient children. And ML did learn to play a few songs on the piano.
A little louder.
He even went off to sing with our mother a time or two. Given his love for singing and music, I'm sure he could have become as good as a musician as our mother.
A little louder.
Had his life not called him down a different path, but that's just what his life is.
Okay, so we can figure out the author's purpose by asking ourselves questions. Let's think about what we've talked about so far. The author has only mentioned ML, which is who? Who is ML? Who is ML? Carla?
ML is Martin Luther King Jr.
ML is Martin Luther King Jr. So far, she's only talked about their childhood. Why do you think the author is choosing to tell us about Martin's childhood? Why do you think the author is choosing to tell us so much about Martin Luther King's childhood? Victoria.
Why she's telling us so much about the childhood is probably she's going to do like, it's kind of like a timeline,
Okay.
but you show, like you actually tell what happened.
Okay. So what does all of this say about his childhood? So right now Victoria said she thinks the author's going to tell us the story in a timeline. So kind of tell us what comes next. Well, what does all this information about Martin's childhood tell us about Martin? Michaela.
That when he was a kid, he was just a normal little kid playing outside like all the other kids.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. The author shows us that ML was a normal, fun-loving kid. Now, when we think of famous people, especially people who are famous for doing what Martin Luther King Jr. did, do we think of them as kids? Do we think of them as normal kids? Or do we think of them as doing what they did even when they were little kids? Like speaking up and doing that kind of thing? Smith.
We think of them as doing what they did when they were adults.
Exactly. But at one time, all famous adults were just a little kid. And was Martin Luther King Jr. any different from any of you? Other than the fact that in Martin's time, there were no like TVs or devices, but he did the same kind of stuff. I'm sure you guys go and play outside, and you guys maybe take music lessons. You remember what we talked about earlier about being negative? You guys go and play outside. You guys play pranks on people. You guys may take music lessons. He did the same stuff that a normal kid does. So far, does this tell us what the author's purpose was? Was it to inform, persuade, or entertain? Does this tell us anything yet? Not really. It could go any way right now. It could be an entertaining story about Martin Luther King's childhood. It could be beginning a story to inform us about his life. The more we read, we haven't really seen any opinions yet. Not any major opinions, at least not anything that the author is trying to influence us to, so who knows? It could end up being persuasive. We don't really know yet. Okay, let's see. We'll go ahead and try to read the next page. So go ahead and turn the page and read next, Michaela, loud and slow. Everybody should be following along with their finger, showing me that even though it's not your turn, you're still focused and you're paying attention.
My brother and I...
Not my brother. Not my brother.
My brothers and I grew up a long time ago. Back in a time when certain places in our country had unfair laws. That said, it was right to keep black people separated because of our skin was darker.
So not because of our skin was darker, but because
our skin was darker. And our
it's one of our vocab words.
ancestors had been captured in far off Africa and brought to America as slaves.
Okay, good. Read next. Victoria, loud and slow.
Atlanta.
Louder. You're going to have to be a lot louder.
Atlanta, Georgia, the city in which we were growing up. And those laws.
Not and those laws.
Had those laws. Because of those laws, my family rarely went to the picture shows or
Not for visitors.
visited Grant Park with its famous
Try now.
slicing Morana.
Aaron, do you have an idea? What do you think it might be? You're close, but it's a hard C in the middle. The first C is soft, but the second C is hard. Aaron, what's your idea? Cyclorama. In fact, you can just go to the next one.
And that to this very day, I don't recall ever seeing my father on a streetcar because of those laws and the identity,
Not identity. Cover up IN. And what is that word?
dignity,
Dignity. So add IN to the beginning, and we have
and dignity.
indignity. So we know in is a prefix that makes the word opposite. It makes a noun opposite. UN makes an adjective opposite. IN makes a noun the opposite. So dignity is respect. So indignity would be the opposite of respect, disrespect. So start because of those laws.
Because of those laws and the indignity that went with them, Daddy preferred keeping ML, AD, and me close to home where we'd be protected.
So in biographies, like when authors write biographies, they usually give information about the time period and the places where that person lived. Just go straight here. Okay, so we'll finish that tomorrow. Go ahead, close your textbooks. Put your guided practice